Welcome back to the deep dive. It is a pleasure to have you with us again. We are continuing a journey today that I think is one of the most important we've ever embarked on. We're returning to our special series, Building Humans.
It is wonderful to be back. And you're right, journey is the perfect word for it. We aren't just looking at isolated facts here. We're really, trying to map out the terrain of human development.
Exactly. We're looking at the architecture, how we become who we are. And before we start laying any bricks today, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the collaboration that makes this deep exploration possible. We're able to dig into this incredible material thanks to the Al Mahaba Foundation, Love for All and Service to All, and of course, the Dar el Kalima Publishing House.
It's such a vital partnership. They're providing the roadmap, the texts, and the philosophical grounding for these discussions. It allows us to access information that isn't just pop psychology, but is rooted in deep observation and, well, real scientific rigor.
Absolutely. So let's orient ourselves for the listeners who might just be tuning in, or even for those who need a little refresher. In our last discussion, which was part 3 of this series, we unpacked a concept that was honestly quite mind-bending. We talked about babies as spiritual embryos.
Right. That was a crucial foundation. The idea that when a child is born physically, they're not yet complete. Not in the sense of their personality or their spirit.
The physical birth is just step 1.
Exactly. There's this secondary invisible incubation period where the spirit, or what the source calls the psychic organ, has to develop.
The software installation phase, as we called it.
That's it. The hardware is there, the body, the brain, but the operating system, the human element, is still being written.
And that leads us directly to today's topic. Because if the baby is a spiritual embryo waiting to develop, they need tools. They need a mechanism to take in the world and build a self. And today, we're pivoting from that spiritual status to the practical machinery of how that actually happens.
We are opening the toolkit. And what we find inside is honestly the most sophisticated learning device in the known universe.
It really is. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the absorbent mind. And the source material also gives it a very descriptive subtitle, The Super Sponge.
The super sponge.
Yeah.
It sounds almost cartoonish, but the reality behind it is profound. This is the secret weapon that every single child is born with.
You know, when I hear secret weapon or superpower, I usually think of technology. We have supercomputers, we have AI that can write poetry,
Sure.
we have adult geniuses who can solve complex theorems. But the source material seems to be making a very bold claim here. It suggests that a child's mind, specifically this absorbent mind, is superior to all of that.
It is superior, and I don't say that to be hyperbolic.
Wait, this makes it superior. I mean, if I look at a toddler, they're cute, sure, but they're also messy, irrational. They can't tie their own shoes. How is their mind superior to mine or yours?
It comes down to the fundamental nature of the operating system. If you want to understand why the child's mind is superior in this specific context, you have to look at the process of learning itself. The source material presents a provocative truth right at the outset. It draws a clear line in the sand between the adult and the child.
Okay, lay it on me. What's the difference?
The difference is this. An adult studies to learn. A child simply exists to learn.
Exist to learn. That sounds very poetic, almost philosophical, but I want to make sure we really understand what that means, practically.
Let's break it down. Think about your own life. Think about the way you approach acquiring a new skill. Let's say you want to learn a new language. That's usually the big comparison because it's complex, it has rules, it requires memory.
Oh, I have been down that road. I tried to learn Spanish last year. It was a journey.
Tell me about the process. What did you have to do?
It was work. So much work. I had to buy the textbooks. I downloaded those apps, the ones that yell at you if you miss a day.
Right.
I made flashcards. I sat there repeating La Mesa, La Ventana, Pero over and over again. I had to carve out specific time in my day, sit at a desk, and just force my brain to focus, to jam the information in there.
You were using your will.
100%. And if I was tired, forget it. Nothing stuck.
Exactly. It was a struggle. It required conscious, deliberate, focused effort. You were fighting against the resistance of your own established brain to insert new data. It's a transaction. You pay with energy, you buy a little bit of knowledge, and chances are, if you stop studying for a month, what happens?
It evaporates. I lose it.
Right. Now contrast that with the child. A 2-year-old is dropped into a world where people are speaking a language they have never heard. It could be English, Arabic, Mandarin, A combination of them.
And they definitely don't have flashcards.
No flashcards, no grammar books. They don't sit there stressing about the subjunctive conjugation of irregular verbs.
Yeah.
They don't hire a tutor.
No, they're just playing with blocks, they're running around, they're eating, they're just living their lives.
Precisely. They're just existing. And yet, within 2 or 3 years, what happens?
They speak. And not just broken phrases. They master the accents, the syntax, the grammar structure. They master the language completely.
They master it to a level of perfection that you, as an adult learner, will likely never reach.
Wow.
You might become fluent, but you'll likely always translate in your head or have an accent. The child absorbs it completely. And here is the key distinction that the source material highlights. And this is the part that really blew my mind when I first read it.
What's that?
The distinction is that the child doesn't just remember the language.
Okay.
They become the language.
Whoa. They become the language. What does that even mean?
It's an existential transformation.
Huh.
When you learn Spanish as an adult, it's a possession. It's a tool you keep in your pocket.
Yeah.
You can pull it out when you need it, put it away when you don't.
Okay.
But for the child, the language shapes their physical reality. It sculpts their vocal cords to make specific sounds. It wires their neural pathways to think in that structure. It becomes fused with their identity.
That is a massive difference. It's like,
Oh,
okay, it's the difference between installing an app on your phone versus building the phone's operating system from scratch.
that is a fantastic analogy. You are installing an app. The child is writing the code for the OS. This is why we call it the absorbent mind. It's not an active, struggling intellect like ours trying to grab things and hold on to them. It is an open state of being that just takes it all in.
So let's talk about that name again. The absorbent mind and the super sponge subtitle. I have to be honest, when I hear sponge, I think of doing dishes. It feels a little passive. Oh, be careful what you say. He's a sponge. We hear that all the time.
It is the classic metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
And it is accurate in terms of capacity.
Mm-hmm.
A dry sponge soaks up every drop of liquid you pour on it. It doesn't discriminate. It takes the tea, the milks, the dirty water. It takes it all.
Right. It's absorbent.
But the source materials suggest we need to go further. The expert perspective here is that the sponge analogy, while helpful, is actually, well, it's incomplete. It's a bit too passive, like you said. Well, think about a physical sponge. You dip it in water, it gets wet, it holds the water. But 5 minutes later, if you squeeze it out, what do you have?
You have a sponge. It's just back to being a dry sponge. The structure of the sponge hasn't changed.
Exactly. The sponge is just a container, the water is the content. But what happens in a child's mind is much more intense. The source material offers a different, perhaps more powerful metaphor, the camera.
The camera. Okay, I can see that.
But not just a camera that snaps a picture when you press a button. Imagine a high-fidelity camera that is recording a continuous 24/7 video stream.
An always-on surveillance system.
In a way, yes. It never blinks, it never cuts, it never edits, it captures everything.
And when we say everything, we really mean everything, right?
Everything. The sights, the sounds, the feelings. The environment is not just something they interact with, it's the material they use to construct themselves. The source material uses a very specific and scientific phrase here that I think is important to dwell on. It says that the impressions the child receives are chemically fused into their personality.
Chemically fused. That sounds permanent. That sounds structural.
It is deeply structural. It's not that the child sees a tree and simply remembers the word tree. The experience of the tree, the sensory input, becomes part of their neural architecture. It's like developing film in a dark room. Once the light hits the chemicals on the film, the image is burned in. You can't just shake the film and make the image fall off. It is fused.
That brings up a really interesting point about filters. Because as an adult, I have filters. If I walk into a messy room, I can ignore the mess and focus on finding my keys.
Right.
If I'm in a noisy coffee shop, I can tune out the chatter and focus on my work.
Exactly. You have a discriminative mind. You can choose what to pay attention to.
But the child.
The child cannot. The absorbent mind has no filter. It captures the entirety of the image. The mess, the keys, the noise, the work, it all goes in together.
And it's not just visual stuff, is it? It's emotional, too.
That is the most critical part. It captures the vibe, the emotional tone of the environment, a kind word, recorded and fused, a loud scream, recorded and fused. The child isn't discriminating at this stage. They aren't saying, oh, mom is having a bad day, I'll ignore that yelling.
Right. They don't have the context or the logic to rationalize it away.
No. The camera just records. And because of that chemical fusion, the child isn't just learning about the environment in an academic sense. They are absorbing the environment to build their own self. They are constructing the human they will become out of the raw materials of their surroundings.
It's almost like 3D printing. They take in the material from the outside and print their personality on the inside.
That is a perfect visualization. And this printing process, this absorption, brings us to another fascinating aspect. We've talked about the power of the mind, but we also need to talk about the cost, or rather, the lack of cost.
This connects back to the adult struggle we started with, right? Because when I study, I get tired, my brain hurts, I need a coffee break, I need a nap.
Exactly. Adult learning is characterized by fatigue. It uses up resources. We have a limited tank of willpower and focus. If we push too hard, we burn out. But the host asks a great question here. Do children get tired of this constant intake?
I mean, logically, they should. If they're running a 247 camera, processing millions of data points, learning language, physics, social cues, motor skills all at the same time, they should be exhausted.
They should be,
They should be sleeping for it a week.
but they don't. The absorbent mind operates without fatigue.
It's the ultimate luxury, learning without effort.
It really is. The source material gives a perfect example of this. The toddler learning to walk.
Ah, that's a classic milestone.
But think about it from a physics perspective. Think about the mechanics involved in learning to walk. Balance, weight distribution, muscle coordination, spatial awareness,
Incredible.
feedback loops from the feet to the brain. It is incredibly difficult.
Engineers spend years trying to get robots to walk without falling over.
Exactly. If you or I had to relearn how to walk from scratch today, let's say after an injury, it would be grueling physical therapy. It would be painful.
Oh, for sure.
We would be sweating. We would be frustrated. We'd be complaining the whole time.
I would definitely be complaining.
We would be exhausted. But look at the toddler. Do they show exhaustion? Do they look at you and say, I'm burned out, I need a vacation?
No, they fall down, they laugh, they get up, they run around screaming with joy. They seem to have endless energy.
That's the difference. They do it with joy. The nature of the absorbent mind is that it finds joy in the function it was designed for. It's a gift from God, designed to work without the friction that we adults experience. It doesn't burn energy. It generates life.
That is beautiful. But I have to play devil's advocate for a second.
Please.
Because if this system is designed for joy and effortless learning, where does the struggle come from? Because we do see kids struggling eventually. We see kids hating school. We see kids resisting learning. When does the effort kick in?
This is where the source material gets a little bit confrontational with us adults. It suggests that the effort, the struggle, often starts when we get in the way.
We break the system.
We interfere with the natural flow. The absorbent mind is hungry for reality, for movement, for exploration. It needs to touch, taste, move, and do. And what do?
We tell them to sit still.
We tell them to sit still. We give them boring rules.
Don't touch that. Sit quietly. Look at this flashcard. Repeat after me.
Exactly. We try to impose our adult methods, our static, stationary, abstract methods, onto this dynamic, absorbent, movement-based learner. We create the friction, we create the fatigue, we turn what should be a joyful creation of self into work.
That is a huge wake-up call. We're taking this high-performance sports car and trying to drive it like a golf cart and then wondering why the engine is making funny noises.
We are trying to force a river to flow uphill.
Yeah.
And that leads us directly into the warning. Because having a super sponge or a 247 camera in your house isn't just a fun scientific fact. It has some serious implications for how we live our lives as parents and caregivers.
Yeah, let's talk about the scary part of this. Because if that camera is always on,
then it is recording everything, not just the stuff you want it to record.
it's not just recording the educational toys and the Mozart music I'm playing in the background.
No. And this is the point that really lands hard in the source material. The absorbent mind doesn't filter for good or bad. It just absorbs what is.
So it absorbs my bad habits just as easily as the good ones?
Spot on. The source material calls this the wake-up call. It forces a mirror in front of the parent. If you are nervous, anxious, constantly vibrating with stress,
The child absorbs nervousness.
it becomes part of their chemical fusion. They don't just see a nervous parent, they build a nervous self. They internalize that state of being as the baseline for reality.
That is terrifying. It puts so much responsibility on us. It means we can't just fake it.
You cannot fake it. The absorbent mind sees through the mask. But flip it. There's a positive side to this.
Okay, give me the good news.
If you are orderly, if you are calm, if you are kind.
They absorb order, they absorb calm.
Exactly. Even if you don't explicitly teach kindness, if you embody it, they absorb it. And this brings us to the core value of the Almohaba Foundation. We talk about service.
Love for all, service for everyone.
Usually when we think of service, especially regarding children, we think of doing things for them,
Mm.
cooking a meal, fixing a toy, tying their shoes.
Right? Acts of service, doing stuff.
But in the context of the absorbent mind, the definition of service changes radically. Service begins with the adult becoming the best version of themselves.
Wow. That is a completely different perspective. So working on my own patience, my own mental state, my own spiritual well-being, that isn't just self-care. That is service to the child.
It is the ultimate service. Because you are the model, you are the source material for the child's construction. The absorbent mind is constantly copying the model it sees. So the best way to build a human, which is the title of this series, is to build yourself.
That reframes parenting entirely. It's not about managing the child. It's about managing the environment and the self that the child is absorbing.
Precisely. We are the curators of the museum that the child is wandering through. If we want them to absorb beauty and order, we must embody beauty and order. We must curate an environment that is worthy of being absorbed.
It's a high bar, but it's also empowering. It means we have a lot of influence just by being who we are. We don't have to be perfect teachers. We just have to strive to be good humans.
It is deeply empowering.
Hmm.
Takes the pressure off teaching and puts the focus on being. If you live your values, the child will absorb them. You don't have to lecture.
So we have this absorbent mind, this super sponge, this 24/7 camera. It's effortless, it's joyful, and it's indiscriminate. It takes in everything.
That is the summary. They are watching and they are absorbing. Always. Now, obviously this doesn't last forever in this exact state, right? The mind changes. I definitely don't feel like I have a super sponge in my head anymore.
It does change. This specific phase, this intense, effortless absorption, typically lasts until around age 6. But even within that window, the mind doesn't just absorb everything equally at all times.
What do you mean?
Well, the focus shifts. There are specific times when the mind gets hyper-focused on specific things. It's not always a wide-angle lens. Sometimes it zooms in.
And that is exactly where we are going next.
Yes. In the next episode of our Building Humans series, we are going to talk about the sensitive periods.
The sensitive period.
This is the concept of timing. There are special windows of opportunity where the absorbent mind focuses intensely on one specific skill or concept like language or order or movement. And if you catch that wave, the learning is miraculous.
But if you miss it,
If you miss that window, well, we will talk about that next time. But let's just say you don't want to miss the timing.
that sounds crucial. I definitely want to know when those windows are opening. It is vital information for anyone raising a child.
Well, I am already looking forward to that. This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. For those of you listening who want to get a head start or who just want to understand this secret weapon of the child better, you need to go to the source.
Absolutely. We are just scratching the surface here.
We highly recommend checking out The Secret of Childhood. It's the foundational text for a lot of what we're discussing.
And you can find that available at the Dar al-Khalima Library. It is a treasure trove of insight. Reading Maria Montessori's own words gives you a depth that is hard to capture in a conversation.
Definitely check that out. Don't miss the timing of your child's growth, and don't miss our next deep dive into the sensitive periods.
We look forward to seeing you there.
Until then, remember the motto that guides this entire series and the foundation behind it. Love for all, service for everyone.
Love for all, service for everyone.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.